welcome everybody. I'm Elizabeth Ackman. I'm the Director of Housing at SUNY Morrisville and part of the Small Colleges group. And please, if there's something specific you want us to talk about today, we do have the topics that you guys shared when you registered, but if there's something you really want us to cover, please put in the chat so we make sure we do that.
And this is just a reminder that these will be happening every month. I believe our next one is on July 15th, if I'm not mistaken. So be on the lookout for some kind of promotion or some email about that so that you can register now and have it on your calendars. But we're looking to have these every month.
Robin, do you want to say who you are?
Yes. Thanks, Beth. My name is Robin Gagno. I serve as a residence life manager at Baldwin Wallace University. It's just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm also part of the panelist.
And I am so sorry. Let me introduce myself as well. For those of you that don't know, my name is Stephen Corres. I am the Associate Dean of Residence Life and Off-Campus Housing and an Ombuds Associate as well for the Curtis Institute of Music in Philadelphia. And like Elizabeth and Robin, I am also one of the members of the Small College and University group for ACUHO-I. So I guess, do you want to, if you want to kick it off, Elizabeth, with what the most talked about or most mentioned topic was maybe? And if anyone has a topic that they'd like to bring up as well, or something that they'd like to ask the group, feel free to unmute yourself. This is very casual. We're a small group, and just mention it, or you can also put it in the chat. Oh, Crystal's coming in.
Okay, so the big thing, did you get Crystal or you want me to add her?
I just did, yeah.
Perfect. So, hi, Brian. So the big thing I saw, 4 people posted about it, different aspects of it, but it was RA training for August. RA training as in RA training for staff, graduates, training, professional staff training. Would we be doing social activities with RA training? How do you help residents instance with limited resources due to everything that's going on? And then just RA training plans. So does anybody want to start off with what they, because the 5 of you did list it, is there anything that specifically people want to know about or have questions with RA training? Or would you like us to give like scenarios of what we're doing at our colleges for the fall right now? How would it help?
Feel free to unmute or put your comments or questions in the chat as well.
Well, I can answer for Res Life at Morrisville. So for RA training, we are going to have it in person. We are going to keep people still spread out. So we're going to use like our bigger classrooms. We call them the dips, where they're like the big classrooms. So we're going to have more space, things like that. But we are going to do a lot more gathering with RAs. So we're really excited about that. I only have 5 RDs. So we are doing a different kind of training module this year than we have in the past, which is we're going to have our basic RD training and cover like specific things at the beginning, but it's only going to be 3 days. And then every other week, we're going to have an hour-long training and talk about things specifically. Because like a thing that my RDs currently brought up to me is that they're all 10 months. And so they learn about conduct, but they don't write their first IR until a month and a half later. So they're like, Beth, I don't remember what you taught me a month and a half ago. So they asked me to break up training stuff. Like also like RA recruitment, we talk about in August, but we don't do it until October. So we're kind of like going to break up our training throughout the semester with the RDs. So we'll still have our weekly staff meeting, but then every other week, we're gonna have a bi-weekly hour training and cover something that's specific to that time of year that would be a good refresher or more detail. I've seen it at a couple other schools, so I thought it would be kind of a cool thing, and my RDs actually brought it to me, so kind of all meshed up. We are going to do more in-services with the RAs this year. We normally only do 1. We're going to try to do 2 or 3 because we really want to bring them together more and do more in-person stuff because we got none last year, and I think you all know what that means. But I think that's really everything with Res Life at SUNY Morrisville. If you have specifics, though, let me know.
At Curtis, we're kind of doing the same thing in Philadelphia. Our students really just want to be, fully fledged back in person and try to get some sort of sense of normalcy. So we will be pretty much in person, back to a sort of normal, whatever. We'll definitely be spaced out, but our entire staff and everyone will be vaccinated. So that also plays a huge factor into some things there as well. We are doing some online training right now in the summer. So we have our staff going through RA 101 and RA 201, which is through ACUHO-I, and they're great. They're great foundation-based courses for especially new RAs. So it gives you kind of like what we like to call in our field the fluff and the basic stuff that really maybe might not be, it's applicable to anybody's campus. It's not campus specific. So I know that is some of the argument there with people, but it's great general knowledge that every RA should have if they're going into the position. It helps because then they come into our in-person training with a sense of what the position is, what to expect, that they're going to be documenting. There's policy procedures. They know what HIPAA and FERPA are, which makes it a lot easier to have those conversations starting the very first day of training. We also are having them do another online training called ARIST. It is a text message and WhatsApp-based training service. And ARIST has a RA bundle. So they have 6 courses bundled up together that you can have your RAs do. It's like super cheap, like $20, I think, per person, or even maybe 15. And it's all done through text messages. It's really awesome. Our staff last year really liked it. It was quick. They get little text message alerts on their phone, and it'll be like, read this about, social justice or whatever the topic is. And then they'll have like a question or a quick survey at the end, or a quick test or exam, and then you're able on the back end to see how they're doing with it. It's called ARIST, ARIST, and that is the company that we've been using. It was recommended to us. I think it was through ACUHO-I or NASPA a while back at the very beginning of the pandemic. And they have like really good customer service. Whenever I ran into issues with the back end stuff, they were right there. It was bizarre because I believe the person who's running it is like 19, but the company's a startup by like a bunch of undergrads. So it's really cool. And our students really like it. So we're doing that. And then we're going to be in person, and we are going to have some social activities as well. We're looking at going to a museum with our staff for a bonding activity and some other things like that. We're just trying to be as safe as possible, and also trying to make sure that we do bring back some sense of normalcy. After a year of being locked up, I think they're all ready for it, and we are, and we're just trying to be as mindful of that as possible. Anyone else have anything they want to share?
Yeah, for at Baldwin Wallace University, one thing that we're doing is we're going to have some online training modules that the RAs can do over the summer. And basically they are how to write an incident report, and then there's a module for that, and then there's a quiz afterwards so they can test themselves in the sense of how well they did. And it also gives us an idea of the areas that we need to touch base on when they come back in the fall. We have fire safety, that we have a video that we have a quiz for, which relates to fire hazards in the residence halls. We have, it's called Children for Stewards. I think that's what it's called. Let me double check. Which is required by all staff, stewards of children. It's a module that the university provides for all staff that work with students. And so all the RAs will take that, and there's already a built-in quiz for that for them to take, and they have to pass it. So they can't just turn it on and let it run and hopefully they'll absorb something through osmosis. There's a quiz that they have to take, and if they don't pass it, then they have to do it again and again and again. So we try to make sure they remind them that they have to pay attention. So we have a number of different modules that we ask them to take before they come back. The good thing about that, we can find out where they're, because of the quizzes, we can find out what we need to hit during training when they're in person for us in the August.
We're doing something similar at Northampton. We're doing a mix. We're doing a hybrid. We have an online format that we built ourselves through Comevo, that we built in content for them around the basic everyday requirements, to do your job as an RA. And we built in quizzes The RDs had a lot of fun building in the quizzes for the staff. I can tell you they might have enjoyed it a little too much. But then we are going to bring them back and do some in-person training and some in-person team building. We don't know if they missed that part, but we missed that part. So we can't wait to have them back on campus again.
On the conversation of RA training, I'm curious, does anybody here incorporate ever or have seen anyone incorporate basic first aid, not mental health first aid, but basic first aid in their training, CPR, things like that? Okay, I'm just curious. I know some schools are liability-wise, they're like wonky about that, so.
We've done it for in-services where students have the option of taking one or two of a set of in-services so they can opt in, but we're with you on the liability part, requiring them to do it, and then somebody's going to put out there that we have trained RAs, and then when somebody fails to perform, we have a duty to respond and have a negligence claim. So, but we have done it for in-servicing.
We do ours as in-services similar, like we do Narcan, CPR, AED. So it's if the student wants the training. The only thing we mandate during training is how to use a fire extinguisher. And so we actually have the fire department come and teach the students how to use a fire extinguisher. But we didn't do any of the in-services this year that offered those because of COVID. But we did ours as in-services very similar to what David said, is so that we never said that all the RAs were ever trained in it. We actually opened it up for even students on campus when we used to do it. So it wasn't just an RA in-service. It was an in-service to learn about how to use a Narcan. It was open to all students. So sometimes RAs would show up, and it was an in-service to how to use an AED. A lot of times, I'm not going to lie, most of it was RAs, and it wasn't because we made them. It's just they were interested. But it was open always to all students on campus, not just our group of students. And that kind of kept us from people thinking Res Life trained their staff on using those things.
And that's kind of the approach we do here. We have it as part of our fall training schedule, but it's actually open to orientation leaders, staff, faculty. It's open to everybody. So we just incorporate it into our schedule. And it's just one of those things that I think our students have always liked having as an option, just a good basic skill to know CPR and know those things. And I appreciate, Wayne, that you mentioned Narcan training, because a couple of us have been Narcan trained in the last 2 months, and we're talking about potentially adding students to that Narcan training list as well. So Wayne, you mentioned that you have students at Juilliard do Narcan training.
That's a good question. Sorry. When I said I was speaking about my previous institution.
Gotcha.
But yes, when my previous institution, we had a person come in who facilitated Narcan training for all of the RAs, not just opting in.
Awesome.
And actually our criminal justice program at our college offered the Narcan training for all students. So when we had it at Morrisville, it was a faculty member that actually offered this training out to students with the support of University Police and others. Because it took a lot to even get them to be able to do the training here. They had to go through a couple different protocols and stuff just to make sure it was okay for students to learn how to use the Narcan as a safety measure. So it was open, and it was actually done by our faculty, but we had about 7-8 RAs out of our 40 that were like, I want to learn about this. Okay. But also, if you then looked at their majors, they were nursing and criminology majors. So it was like, well, of course you want to learn about this. But that's how we've been able to get around some of we want you to have this opportunity to be able to learn about a safety device, but we don't want to mandate it as a Res Life thing. So we've done it that way. Nursing does the AEDs and the CPR training.
Yeah, I highly recommend, if you can and are able to, get your at least full-time professional staff to be Narcan trained. It is such a valuable tool right now, and it's actually free. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I can connect you with folks that can give you the training. It's a 90-minute training for free, and then they'll also provide you with Narcan as well for free to have on hand should you ever need it. They'll replace it as well. And in addition to that, I know people usually freak out when they hear Narcan training. It's not you don't need to necessarily stab somebody with a syringe. You can, it's now up the nose, a little spritz up the nose, and that's all it is. And that kind of helps people. Yes, Pulp Fiction style. I think that's what people kind of like relate to. They think it's going to be like Pulp Fiction, where you're stabbing somebody in the heart with a syringe. It's no longer like that. It's just a nasal spray, so it's a lot less. Well, it's still going to be intense, but it's a lot less intense. So if you want more information, I can share that. Shoot me an email. I'll put my email in the chat.
One of the modules that we do prior to the RAs that come back, and it's sort of in this realm of responsibility, is what we call messes and bloodborne pathogens. We, in each of our halls, we have a first aid kit, which basically has Band-Aids and gauze and those types of things, so that if a student comes to them with a sliver or something like that, they can take care of it or give them a Band-Aid, because not all students come to college with Band-Aids. And then we have a bloodborne pathogen kit that we have in case they have to deal with vomit or anything else that they would come across in the halls. And then we have a module that we got that they have to go through to explain what they can and what they can't do, and when they need to call an outside person to come in, clean certain things like blood, those types of things, where we have to call an outside person to come in. So that module is very helpful to them, and it's also useful and a lot of common sense.
One thing we've done for training in the past is we've done first aid, CPR, EpiPen training, so the RAs could give somebody an EpiPen if needed. And then when it came to fire training, we did the fire extinguisher too. We did how to put out a fire on a stove without a fire extinguisher, just using what's at hand and the lid, as well as how to leave a smoke-filled room. So we literally smoked out an apartment, and they had to crawl from the back bedroom and leave the residence hall. So it's some of the things that we've done first. It wasn't real smoke, like it didn't like hurt them at all. It's just you couldn't see anything. So it was a nice experience to see them actually do that. And then one of the exercises where they had to like find me in an apartment. So I got to see them like running by me and not realizing I was standing right there. Just some of the things that we've done for those categories.
Anybody doing anything uniquely different than what we're talking about for training outside of, our mental health, first aid and typical, how to program? Anybody doing something different that's unique and that's new?
Who has restorative justice at their college? Because that's our new thing at Morrisville, is we're going to be doing the conversation circles and stuff and training the RAs on it. Does anybody else have restorative justice already at their college? If so, raise your hand so I can bug you later. And two, like, how did you implement it into the res life world? Why are you laughing? I'm being serious.
That's always been my conduct philosophy, but that's not what we use here. But,
we're just starting to even look at it, and it's on our list of eventual. It's like a long-term project, but we just started really looking into what restorative justice looks in terms of just discipline purposes, and we haven't even done it in terms of anything else really. So we're like doing it in pieces, and then I would say like long-term that'd be something that we would be looking at as a programmatic standpoint. But we're also in the middle of a complete, I use the term like lack of a better term, we're basically taking our co-curricular programs, trashing them, restarting, even though it's only been in existence for 2.5 years. So like we're in a whole hubbub right now.
I was going to add, we do several of our staff on student affairs have been trained in restorative practice. And actually there's I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and there's a high school that does a lot of restorative practice and teaches their students. And we've actually had opportunities where their students have come and taught our students. And so we do use it actually both with staff and faculty and students in some cases. So, I mean, I can put my email in the chat if you wanted to reach out, and I'd be happy to talk about it a little bit.
Yes, please. Someone wanted to go back to the Narcan training.
Yeah, I just messaged that person as well. I forgot who it was, I'm sorry. I don't know anyone. I mean, other than the one colleague that I know, I've never had to administer it. Thank God. I hope I never have to. But I do know one colleague who has, and it can be very intense, and they needed some time for themselves afterwards. Elizabeth, do you think it is time to maybe shift gears to maybe the next topic, the next hot topic?
So the next group of things that was talked about was COVID and how it looks like things will be for the fall. Talking about like, how has it changed everything from the size of campuses to just overall what it's about. And then the next topic that was really talked about was residential curriculum. So both of them had 3 people. And then a couple of people were just excited to meet other small school institution colleagues. So I don't know if we can really talk about that, except we're all awesome and we can, yay. So I don't know if we want to do residential education or COVID affecting fall. I don't know which one people would like to do, but those 2 are tied.
Maybe we can start with curriculum, because I feel like everybody might be COVID out for a little bit, and then we can go into COVID, since residential curriculum seems to be the new thing that everybody's talking about.
Okay.
So I guess, has anyone implemented residential curriculum into their, oh, tell us about it, Elizabeth.
Oh, sorry, I was ready.
Oh, and Wayne, everybody.
I'm like, implemented it? Yes, twice now at 2 different colleges. So SUNY Morrisville, when I got here, I think that was one of the reasons why they wanted me to come here, is that we had implemented it at my last college. That in my Maxient training, I don't know, it was really weird. My boss is like, you have residential education and Maxient, you're coming. I'm like, okay, fine. So residential education, we had done a slow launch. We work really well with RoomPact and Paul Brown. I think I bother him monthly. I feel so bad for that man. So the biggest thing is making sure you do your deep dig properly and you get all of your artifacts done. If you haven't done residential curriculum, you definitely have to do that. Also make sure to not just go off the websites, but actually like send staff to training or have someone come to your campus and do training. If you have RoomPact, they have 2 faculty, I believe, that are part of the residential education curriculum, and they would actually come to your campus and train everybody on your staff. And we have done that twice now here at Morrisville when we've had changeover, and it's been wonderful. Also, they're very good at helping you get your evaluations done. We had a peer-to-peer review last summer to see where we kind of fell, if we were doing what we need to do, if we needed to enhance areas. It needs to match your college. So if you go on another campus's website and you're like, this is awesome, don't copy it. Go back to your college and see what works for your college. So we do SHIP, or leadership is what we call it. We were trying to do something around a horseshoe. It didn't work. We're Mustangs. We were trying to keep it like school related. Don't ask. So we have 4. It works really well, but the one area we're having to implement differently is our diversity. We found out that it wasn't really getting covered, except if people were doing educational bulletin boards. Another thing, yes, ACPA. Yes, ACPA. Holy cow, you need to be part of ACPA. It's the only reason why we have an ACPA membership at Morrisville, is just the residential curriculum stuff. There's so much information, so much knowledge. Definitely take time to do the research, learn what it is. Don't just jump in, and don't think it's June, you can have it implemented by August. You're on crack. And if you do that, I need to see what it looks like, because I want to know how you did it so well. It takes, I mean, we're on year 5 and I still feel like we're just starting. Because you're constantly growing, you're changing with your college, you're changing so say your college mission changes, or you get a middle states review, or anything comes up, you're going to change residential curriculum programming. And also, good luck with your faculty, because they're going to see curriculum and think that you're trying to get into their world, and you're really not. You're just trying to make the educational setting better for your residential students. So this is my soapbox and my opinion. Please do not think this is anybody else's opinion. But that's just, I love it. I think it gives more to, one, the RAs know what they're programming on. They know why they're programming on it. If there's a lot of education behind it. It relates really to your college and your student body versus like all those other theories that we'll not talk about, that we have all done in our careers. So I would really say if it is something you're interested in doing and your college wants to put the time and energy in, and also the money, because you do need to make sure you get the training and get the resources, then I would definitely say go for it. But it's not right for every college. So you need to make sure that you have it fit for you. But I have had it at 2 schools. I love it. I really think it's developed my program at Morrisville, and it's developed our RAs. They have intellectual conversations with their residents instead of just, can you take a roster and tell me every person that lives on your floor? No, I need to know if you know them. They check in. Our passive programming was easier to implement during COVID because of the education and the research we had behind with residential curriculum. But again, Morrisville is different. And what I'm saying is this is not a cookie cutter. It's not, you don't cut it from one college and implement at your college. They have a very good resource center. They have a very good training. If you can ever go to the institute training, go to it. If you can't go to the institute training, work with Mattering Your State, Mattering Your, so SUNY, we have UB, and UB has 4 faculty, and they actually have a huge educational program. So they're actually presenting to my campus in a couple weeks. And even though they're not really a peer, we kind of use them as a peer because of being SUNY. Because I more wanted them to rip my stuff apart and tell me how to fix it or what I should change or whatever. So it just matters what you want, but make sure it's the right fit for your college. Sorry, I'm done.
The only things that I have is, and I'll take off my background so you can see, this is a good baseline to use as a framework. The Curricular Approach to Student Affairs. It's a good book. I used to work really closely with Keith Edwards, who helped create the curriculum that I previously used at Macalester College. We were in year 13 when I left, and we were in our 3rd iteration, and it took 5 years for it to become what it became before I left. And so I'm saying all this, if anyone wants support or feedback or ideas, I'm currently in the process of developing one at Macalester that's institutional. I'm sorry, Macalester, Juilliard, that's institutional as opposed to departmental. So yeah, it's a lot. It can be overwhelming, but it's okay. It's not going to be perfect. And I was working in a department of 9 people. I'm now in a department of 2. So it's going to look very differently depending on where you're at and all the energy. Oh yeah, the book is called The Curricular Approach to Student Affairs. And I'll hold it up there. Keith Edwards and Kathleen Kerr and all of them, James Tweed, blah, 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 blah. All these great people. Also this too, good old Paul. We love him. He's great. This is also essentially the materials that are integrated within developing a co-curricular learning model. So anyway, I love Paul. It was his birthday the other day. Thank you. That's all I have. If anyone needs any support, I'm happy to provide it.
Thank you, Wayne. Jacob, your hand is up. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So actually here at Florida Southwestern State College, we are going to have a complete student engagement curriculum that's being adopted from NACE. And we've actually signed on with Presence, which is going to be kind of our student engagement app in which we're going to be utilizing throughout our our back end of the system and that sort of thing, to where that's going to be able to measure our learning outcomes in regards to campus in general, and the engagement and activities that are online and that sort of thing virtually, and also have assessment built into it as well. So that's a lot less work that we're going to actually have to do. Now, as we introduce it this year, we only have 1 residence hall, so we don't have to really worry about trying to keep things consistent across the board. We're managing this process along the way. And now that I've got the seat at 2 different campuses rolling out, it's going to be a little bit easier to manage, because there was life skills that was implemented last year and previous years, but now, we're doing more of the curricular approach. So, it's a give and take sort of thing, and we're prepared for it. So.
Thank you, Jacob. And MJ, you also have something you'd like to share as well. Please go ahead.
So, okay. I'm with Elizabeth on this one. I have a lot of opinions on this because my literal position. So previously, prior to I wouldn't say December. Prior to December, the institution had two. So we have 4 residence halls, 2 pro staff, and 2 grad students. My position, based off of our current cycles, I'll put cycles in quotations, based off our current cycles, they indicated that they needed to have someone specifically created to oversee assessment and then oversee curriculum/residential education. So my job literally was created, and I have a job right now for this literal thing. And I just gave a presentation to the entire division about what I essentially learned from all different aspects of our current curriculum, how it's looking, and what we have done so far, and how we can make improvements. And I've made some recommendations, but then, yeah, so we'll and then take that as well. Apparently, my now presentation is now being sent to the president, and I say that, which is huge for, I guess it's huge because they're skipping provost and our vice provost's office, which now here's where it gets interesting. Back to our quick timeline, we actually start out with 5 curricular goals. Then they decided to skim it down to 4. And then they had within that, we had 3 to 4, we had 3 outcomes. So this is what we've been working on. And if anyone would like this, I don't know where the original doc is, but I can scan it and send it to anyone. So just let me know and I'll be happy to send that to anyone, send this to anyone as an example. So essentially, by doing that, we were doing this, and then the provost found out, and I found out in quotations, and they basically took it, hijacked it, reworded all of our stuff to make it more academically oriented. So it is trying to assess something that is not accessible is, hold on, it is appreciation. How do you assess appreciation? So there's that. So it's essentially my position being the fact that I now am like, you can't really assess appreciation. So that's part of like this next summer, and I'm working with a few others in our department to kind of like reintroduce what we originally had, to then be able to, sorry, my phone's blowing up, make it not academically oriented, and it's residential / campus wide. And because our outcomes are student life, are the entire division, and then each department kind of takes that and then implements it in a way that makes sense for each functional area. So like counseling, res life, student activities / fraternity sorority experience, stuff like that. So it's, again, my literal job was created to do this. And I have so many opinions, and I keep on finding more things that I'm like, I have opened Pandora's box. And I keep on finding new things. I'm like, this is a problem. This is a major issue. Why? So the presentation I gave yesterday is skipping the provost and the vice provost, apparently, which is supposed to be the people that I'm supposed to actually, it would be initially go to, but going directly to the president. So there's that. So there's my 2 cents. Love curricular approach. Can't wait to dive more and fix this.
So I just added, you cracked me up so much. So I just added some links, and some other people have added links. Definitely buy the book. Like if you're just interested in yourself, buy the book. It's not much money. It's awesome. It's amazing. I'm on my 2nd copy because I spilled coffee on my 1st copy 2 years ago when I was stressing out. Don't ask. But I kept this 1st copy just as like a remembrance of all the coffee pieces. Yeah, long story. Anyways, I put in the residential curriculum stuff from Paul Brown. He gives you this little thing too if you go to his whatever. It's like all these words. We have 100 of them in our office because I think he sends them to me when he's bored. But one of the links I put down has it so you can go right to what the definition, one of the definitions of residential curriculum are, resources, things like that. RoomPact has a ton of resources on their website, and you do not have to be a member or pay for RoomPact. I will do a spin out for RoomPact really quick. It does make doing your curriculum very easy because it has templates that you can easily fill in to develop your curriculum. So I will do a little spin-off for RoomPact. They helped us go paperless when I was told we had to go paperless really quick. We have so much stuff in RoomPact. Like, I feel so bad for Matt and Paul because I think I talk to them way too much some days. But if you guys need anything with res curriculum, I can always share like where we're at. But yeah, I totally agree with some of the statements. Like, you cannot launch this overnight. You can't even launch it in a year. When people ask me, I'm like, if we're still in soft launch, and they're like, Beth, you're in year 5. I'm like, yeah, I know, we're still moving on. So just, it grows with your college, it grows with your program, it grows with what's going on in the world. So don't think that you can put a bow on it and be done. And take the time. Just take the time.
I think to kind of give another perspective on I guess, curriculum, I learned all about curriculum and was fully trained in it in my last 6 months before I left my last institution. So I got a great crash course and free, multi-$1,000 training from RoomPact that I was able to put on my resume. And during my job search, a lot of, by the way, those of you that are in maybe entry-level and mid-level positions, and you're looking to move up, that will be a really huge impressor for many, many, many jobs right now, to have RoomPact training or curriculum training, or being a part of the developing of a curriculum on your campus. That being said, I had spent the transitionary year of the conversion that has to happen from what you're doing now, whatever model you're using, to a curriculum. And it's very unique. You're probably not going to get a lot of buy-in at first from your student staff. There'll be some who will love it, and it'll be very few. And there'll be most who will actually hate it and not understand it. And in some cases, they might not understand that it actually will make their jobs a lot less stressful and actually more focused. And maybe even they don't have to do as much work as they're doing in a traditional model with the residential curriculum model. But they don't fully see that until probably after they're gone, to be honest with you. That being said, also keep in mind, like everybody else said, it is not something that's going to be done in the first year. I think my previous institution is in their year 2 of it, and I think they're getting there. I don't know that it'll be done right away, and I agree it's probably going to take a couple years before it's fully implemented. But also keep in mind, you probably won't be there when it has actually finished. If you're in an entry level or mid-level position and you're looking to at some point move on and move up within the next 2, 3, 4 years, you probably won't see the end of it. So it might very well end up dying out when you leave too. So keep that in mind. If you're the one kind of carrying the torch for curriculum at your institution, once you leave, unless your senior housing operator is like fully fledged into it and knows about it, the next RD or the next assistant director or associate director might not be taking it on or continuing the work that you've done. So keep that in mind too. And you probably might not care because you're like, whatever, I'm at a new institution anyway. That being said, I keep in contact with a lot of my former staff members, and I had several of them come to an athletic event in Philadelphia. They're part of a sports team, and they were playing UPenn. And we met up for lunch when they were here, and I was curious to hear how they were doing with this curriculum model. And they didn't have the best of things to say about it, and they were kind of some of our best RAs. They actually feel as though it was losing sight of kind of community building and having, more events. And so it was interesting to hear their perspective. I think it's really important to assess your staff throughout the entire process and see how they are doing with it. And if they see that it's being successful, because if they don't, if you don't have buy-in from them at all at some point, it's never going to be successful. Even if it's in like year 3, if your staff doesn't like it and it's not working, it's just never going to be successful. So you need their buy-in, and you need to know how they're reacting to it, and if they have boots on the ground, and if it's actually working. And I mean, I've heard from my previous student staff, that they were just like, yeah, people kind of forge things. Most RAs are no longer doing as much as they used to. So just assess the situation. It's not for every campus also. I think Elizabeth or Wayne might have said that. It is definitely not for every campus. I don't know that it would work in my current institution. It's something that I'm exploring, but I can't see that it might work in this setting. So just some more food for thought on a different angle.
I'm messaging Paul right now. He goes, what are you talking about? And I said, we are very clear that you have to go through training and all this other stuff. He goes, good topic. The needs of small schools with curriculum are different than larger schools. I should write something on this. So I go, I also did a plug for RoomPact. He goes, and that's why we love you. But yeah, Paul Brown's great. So is someone brought up Ed, I thought, right? Did someone say Ed's name? No? One of the faculty? Okay, never mind. But there's a lot of great faculty out there. So you might have someone at a neighboring college that is faculty, and just have them come and do a presentation to see. But yes, Steve is so right. When you lose that person that has the fire, you might lose residential curriculum. When I left my last institution, even though everybody, including my RDs, went through it, residential curriculum died with me because myself and the vice president both left. And we were the two that wanted it.
It's a lot of work too.
Yeah. So it's just, it matters. But honestly, this is all the way up. Like our provost is a huge supporter of residential curriculum here. He came from the student affairs world. So we have support. I don't see this going anywhere if I end up ever leaving here. One way I was able to get my staff to buy in was to do room packed because I had some techies. So they got on the techie side of it, got super interested in the room pack software, and then saw how the residential curriculum combined. So I don't know. I was trying to get buy-in.
Really quick, I did see, I think someone asked if I could show how I presented on like my presentation on like the assessment stuff. Here's the problem. The data that was collected about the co-curricular learning goals and everything, because they're academically oriented questions, they're framed, how do I say this? They're framed to have a positive outcome, regardless of what the actual is, what it actually could be for students to actually experience. So because of that, what I presented to the division is more of like, this is what we did well. This is what we didn't do well. Here are the favorite programs. Here are the things that the students want. So it's very, not even curriculum really truly, it wasn't really truly about curriculum. So it was like basically just pure on what we have done in terms of this past year / even just this past semester and how we can improve the student experience. And then next year, I'm actually going to dive much more into this. And then when I do different assessment protocols throughout our year, I will be putting in ways to then properly assess our curriculum. On top of that, we went from this is why it's also more frustrating. We went from we were doing assessment, and that's why I put cycle in quotations. Our cycles were not uniformed. And they would assess randomly without any real schedule. It just kind of happened. So because of that, we went from that to, I can find it. My desk is like a disaster, but it's like an organized disaster. If that makes any sense. We're going to, I don't know where it is right now. But anyways, so we're going from random to having actually a 3-phase process. And this is something that was a conversation between myself and the vice president of student affairs. And it was kind of like also my idea just of where to put them so that it doesn't fall in the academic calendar and that we have potential to have more students to answer our questions versus getting burnt out on the amount of questionnaires that they have to fill out at the end of the semester and all this other stuff. So it was like, we were very intentional about how we're going to be creating an assessment cycle. But again, I haven't done anything in terms of actually assessing our curriculum yet. Work in progress. If you'd like, I can send you the presentation. I'd have to redact a couple things, but if anyone like it, just let me know. I'll be happy to send it.
MJ, this is Crystal from Caldwell University. I just want you to know, just make sure all of this is on your resume because you are actually setting yourself up that you could always leave student affairs if you need to. I know we always say that we shouldn't do that, right? I know, guys, that's like the faux pas. But if you ever needed to make a transition out, you are setting yourself up to work in institutional advancement and things like that, because these are the kinds of things that our folks on our campuses who are in those roles are telling us to do. And it's not necessarily in our departments that we're always doing that. So I just think that the work that you're doing is amazing, and keep fighting the good fight, because I hear your passion and your frustration sometimes in the like, why are they doing this like this? I think sitting in my role, sometimes I say that all the time when we're making decisions on campus, like, why is this happening? I'm sure everyone can resonate with that, especially after COVID. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. It seems like you're doing some really awesome work.
Appreciate it. It was one of the things I recognized the other day. I was like, this is something that I should not, our positions are set in a weird, like they're mid-level, but they're entry as well. It's kind of a weird quasi, we do both. But because of I'm like, this is not something I would normally do anywhere. I've never heard of someone else doing stuff like this. Like this is usually like VPSA or even like senior director level type of thing. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna go with it. So yeah, but thank you, I appreciate it. my resume, once I leave this institution, is going to be beyond, it's going to be wild. Like, I'm also restarting fraternity and sorority life. And I changed it from Greek life to fraternity and sorority experience from like scratch. And I'm redoing literally everything. Whole government's restarting. I'm starting out an RA conference for the state of West Virginia. Like, I'm doing a lot, and this is just my summer projects. Fun fact.
Wow.
So I'm just like, I have too much on my plate, and I keep on doing. And the other problem is that my boss has never told me no. He just helps me prioritize, and I'm like, this is a problem. You have to tell me no. Like, I'll just keep on going. So yeah, but thank you. I appreciate it. It's gonna be interesting. It'll be an experience.
Right. I think that is the curse and the blessing of a small institution. At times, we are extremely overworked, which is sometimes just to make a point on that residential curriculum conversation we were just having. That's wonderful and beautiful. I think sometimes when we're at small institutions and we don't have enough full-time staff to be doing a residential curriculum, I don't want to do anything that's like not worth the time, if that makes sense. So sometimes when I've been challenged, I've been working at small institutions my entire career now, although I went to a larger institution for my undergrad and my master's, but that's the curse and the blessing. You know, the fact that you have multiple hats and doing multiple things, and sometimes we get drained, but at the same time, you might be able, you said you're in an entry to somewhat mid-level role, but you may be able to go after the time that you've been there into an associate director or director role at a smaller institution. Like, I mean, that's just what happens. So, you know, the curse and the blessing, but yeah, I'll step off.
Completely agree.
So does anybody want to talk about residential curriculum more? We have 10 minutes left. I don't want to like cut any, and we do have, like, there was the comments about COVID for the fall and how is that affecting fall. And I don't know if we really want to talk about that or if we want to move that to the next meeting, because I feel like if we open that, it's more than a 10-minute conversation probably, ish, maybe, I don't know. So I just want to make sure we're using everybody's time effectively.
Did anyone attend there was just a meeting that Star Res and ACUHO-I and a couple other organizations had about maybe right before this one. Did anybody attend it? It was basically about fall opening. Oh, Julie, you were there?
Yeah, there wasn't anything new. I was really hoping that it was going to be some new information that Star Res might have out for our use. Really what they did was they asked the panel the same questions that we've been talking about for the last year and a half. What are you doing different? Are you going to have extended move-in? And
yeah,
just a rehash of all of the, I think, 13 conversations we had last summer.
Yeah. I think it's the same. I was there too, and I think it's the conversations around COVID are going to be the exact same for the next month. They'll change in September once we've all opened up and we can all talk about what worked and what didn't work. But I think at this point, schools should know at this point if they're mandating vaccines or not mandating, if they're testing or not testing. With opening being like less than 2 months away in some cases, I think most schools already have their decisions made, and now it's just a matter of implementing it. So I feel like the conversations around it are the same every session you go to. But ACUHO-I does have panels happening around opening, around COVID on a regular basis. So make sure to look at your emails. They'll send those out. But I mean, I've been to every single one. They are the exact same conversation. Nobody has said anything different.
I think the big thing that I was taking away from it was you could tell that housing staff disagree with what their universities are doing, right? The universities are no mask, because we all want everybody to come back. And I think that we're getting on board with what our universities want us to do. Although we would feel differently in the residence hall, and come September 20th, we're probably all going to need quarantine housing again, because there's still too many adults and now adult college students that are not getting vaccinated. And so I think we need to be prepared for what happened last summer, just not to that same extent, but that frustration came about from the panelists that, no, we're not going to require it, but gosh, I wish we were.
Yeah, I got that impression too. I'm curious for a quick poll, if everyone can just use the raised hand feature under the reactions. Who is mandating a vaccine or requiring a vaccine at their institutions for the fall?
the only reason why I'm speaking is like I unmuted is just because are we saying what I can say legally?
Yeah, what your institution, so at this point, most institutions have released a statement as to whether or not they are requiring vaccines or not requiring, or whatever their policy is. I would say, like, if you're requiring it, I mean, I don't think there's really no in between. I've heard a couple institutions say we are strongly encouraging you to be vaccinated. But I mean, that's the language we're using, but really we're mandating it. Like, we're having clinics, there's gonna be orientation, like it's pretty much, it's just like what you're saying, legal jargon manipulation.
Our legal jargon is we're waiting on SUNY guidance, because
that's the other thing. Yeah.
SUNY went public and said everybody was going to be vaccinated, but they haven't told the colleges what that looks like. So we just keep telling everybody we're waiting on SUNY guidance.
And you also have to look at your states. So I know New York State is now 70%. They just officially became 70%, whatever it's called, vaccinated as a state with their population. So their mandates are all out the window. And I believe PA, where I'm at, is very close to. And once that happens, everything's out the window too.
Okay, Debbie, I love you professionally anyways, but that comment just totally cracked up my life. Thank you. I needed that. She says, Idaho is the wild, wild west, and we don't require anything. I love you so much in a professional way.
Oh, it's good to see you, Beth.
You too.
Yeah, our state is like crazy right now. I live in Washington and I work in Idaho, and I wouldn't live in Idaho because they just, yeah.
Sounds like Florida. I'm originally from Florida and I live in West Virginia right now. So it kind of sounds like Florida.
But yeah, I don't want to raise my hand because I don't know. Like, does that make sense?
I know our biggest hurdle, and I think Wayne might be in the same situation because we're both at very similar institutions. We have a very large international student population. UK, Australia, needless to say, most of these other countries are doing better with COVID than we ever were, but we have a large international student population, Asia, UK, Australia, Ireland, Russia. Our biggest thing was they have vaccines in those countries that we don't agree, that are not approved by the FDA here. And we were trying to figure out with legal and with other institutions that are similar, how are they kind of going through those pitfalls? Do they count? Are you making them get vaccinated with one of the 3 that we provide here when they get here, even if they have their own country's vaccines? So now we're included, I don't know about anyone else, or if Wayne, you have all done this too at Juilliard, but we are now including the World Health Organization recommendations as well as the FDA and CDC recommendations for vaccines. And that opens it up for 3 more different vaccines that are not a part of the 3 that we are all aware of. And it's kind of helped with mainly our Asian and Russian population. So yeah, that's another factor that we've been dealing with that.
Stephen, we were also thinking about that. This is Crystal again. We were also thinking about that for our students. They did mandate the vaccine. Our incoming international students, if they have not received a WHO approved vaccine, we have set up a plan. They will, when they come to campus for their early orientation, because they come in a little earlier than everyone else. If they have not been vaccinated and we don't have that paperwork, they're going to go get rapid tested, PCR rapid tested. The university is absorbing the cost of that. And then we also have a site already set up for them to be vaccinated with their first shot. So they're going to allow them to move in with the honus that they're partially vaccinated. And they'll follow up with them. So we're kind of like doing that train for them. And I was very much on board with that, just because I didn't want some of our international students, if they didn't choose J&J, to be about 6 weeks in transit trying to come to campus. So especially because with their visas, they can't enter the country until 30 days before the start of their program, if I'm not mistaken. And so, yeah, that was something that we were thinking about. But along with taking the WHO, we are doing that on the first day when they come in. We're taking them to be tested and then to get their vaccine.
I think we're doing the exact same thing then. We're requiring anybody who is not fully vaccinated to come in with a 72-hour negative test before they arrive. And then they're being tested on the site as well. They're going to be placed in isolation housing until we get their tests back that say that they're negative, and then that will give us 2 negative tests, and then they're going to be scheduled to be a part of our vaccine clinic that is happening in the middle of orientation as well. For anyone who hasn't been vaccinated, we're going to give them their first dose of Pfizer and then their second in September.
What happens if they got vaccinated in their country with a vaccination we don't count? Are you still going to make them get vaccinated?
That's what our protocol with the World Health Organization, where
Okay.
like World Health Organization has added 3 from other countries. If it's not one of those, that the 3 that are from the other countries that the World Health Organization has approved, then they're going to have to be vaccinated. That there's no other way around that. But I believe from what we've looked at with legal and what we've kind of reached out to with our international students, between the 3 that we're aware of here in the States and the 3 that are from the World Health Organization that they're okay with, they're all okay. But it's interesting because in Asia, there are like 13 different vaccines apparently. So it makes it really, you have to be careful and really monitoring what, and their standards for in other parts of the world are different than ours for FDA. Not saying that it's better or worse, but they're different standards. So I've learned a lot about vaccines and epidemiology. I feel like I'm ready to go in and possibly change careers now at this point. I don't know about you all.
Right?
Make some of that epidemiology money.
My family is like a lot of pharmacology and like medical, and I'm like, I feel like I've learned too much. I could start going into this field, like follow the family business. And I'm like, no, I can't, no.
Well, we are at 3 o'clock. In the essence of time, I know folks have other meetings. This was great. I hope you all got something out of this. This is awesome because I see a lot of similar faces from the previous meeting that we had. So hopefully we'll see you on July 15th for the next one. And stay tuned for registration information for that. Robin, Elizabeth, do you have anything else you want to wrap it up with?
Stay safe. Have a wonderful summer. Take your time for yourself because this is your only time probably. And August is probably be just as crazy as all last semester was. So please take time for yourself. It will be here tomorrow. Like, shut your computer off.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who jumped on board. It was very informative, and hopefully you were able to gain some information that was useful. And again, if you have other colleagues that are from small schools, please encourage them to join us because the more information we share, the better we have in working with our students and staff as we prepare for opening.